Nuneaton, the jewel of the South Midlands, the town who gave us such great men as George Eliot and Larry Grayson, the throbbing heart of this teeming metropolis, the pearl of the CV13 postcode, down by the roundabout and up the one-way system, is Nuneaton Town Hall, where we can find none other than Nuneaton's Mr. Entertainment.
Hello ladies and gentlemen and boys and girls, I'm Barry Tadcaster and this is my friend Ken Jeffens, who is an orang pendek. Hello, my name is Ken Jeffens and I am an orang pendek. Unlike the other orang pendeks, I do not come from the Indonesian island of Sumatra. I come from the London borough of Lewisham, where I am employed by Lewisham Town Council as an ombudsman. It's time for another episode of On the Track Extra, and what we got for the viewers this week, Ken? This week we are visiting the Foundling Museum and meeting its proprietors, Meekly Humbleton and Lowly Humbleton.
The really likely old credits.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, good evening, and it's very peculiar saying good evening because I've got absolutely no idea what time of the day it is when you're watching this, wherever you are watching it. But it's very early evening here on the Monday of this week, and after all sorts of things have got in the way today, I finally sat down to do a bit of filming for On the Track Extra. Before we get on with the show entirely, I want to tell you one piece of cautiously very good news. Corinna and I went for her appointment at the oncology department at North Devon District Hospital on Friday, and the oncologist told us that for the fourth, I think it is, time running, he has not been able to find any evidence of cancer. Corinna is still seriously unwell and there are lots of things that need to be done. But this is particularly good news because both Corinna and I, despite the fact we've been pretending to be feeling otherwise, have been fearing the worst. And now, at least we know that the worst is not going to be happening. Not yet, anyway. Now, for the last several episodes, we've been looking at Max Blake, or should I call him Dr. Max Blake's live stream footage that he took at the Mosque Aquarium deep in the heart of the Russian capital. And I told you last time that there was only enough material left for one more episode. Well, I had a look at it just now, and in fact there's two more episodes worth of things to go. So we're going to give that a break for this week, and then we're going to be back with it again next week. But first, Charlotte and I were sent some footage, or at least a picture with a bit of video footage of a very strange fish from China. Enjoy. Well, Charlotte, as you know, the person I've known longest in the world that I'm not actually related to is a guy called Richard Muirhead. Yeah. And you've met him several times at the Weird Weekend and things. And as you probably also know, Richard sends me the weirdest stories. Like that. What do you think of that?
It's a weird looking fish.
Yes, but can you see a person's face on it?
Personal space?
Person's face?
Oh, a person.
Oh dear God. What do you mean? Can you see? Okay, Charlotte, let's just run with this for a bit. How could you see somebody's personal space?
There's no other fish in the picture.
So
it's got its own personal space.
Is that female logic?
I don't know. I misheard you. But yes, I can see the person's face.
Weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, of according to Cole Marshall, and I agree with him, that's a koi carp of some description.
They can get very big.
They can get very big, and they can get very strange markings. I've never seen one that's got markings that look so similar to a person's face before. But what about this, which was taken in 1934 by a Swiss photographer called Mr. Balkin, or probably Monsieur Balkin. And it purports to show a creature called a tatzelwurm, which is a semi-mythological and maybe cryptozoological creature that's been reported in many places in the Alps, in the Italian Alps, the French Alps and the Swiss Alps. And up until the 1930s, many people believed in its existence. As far as I know, nobody has actually seen one in about 30 or 40 years at least. And please guys, if I'm wrong here, if you've got any post-1960 sightings of the tatzelwurm, please email us. My email address, as always, john@eclipse.co.uk. But, had you ever heard of the tatzelwurm before today? Now, they're very, very peculiar sounding creatures because although some people describe them as being like a large lizard with stumpy legs, other people have said that they only have the two front legs and no back legs. But as you may or may not know, there are both lizards and salamanders that only have front legs. We used to have some. We used to have a small colony of lesser sirens, which we had for some years, until for some reason the largest one attacked the two smallest ones, killed it, and then died of its own wounds, which was a great pity because I was very fond of them. They're lovely little things, and I've never been able to find any for sale since. But there are quite a number of reptiles and amphibians known. The reptiles are various species of skink that only have front legs. Reality check here, reality check here. A brief interjection. I was convinced that there were species of skink that only had a pair of front legs, but whilst I was searching for pictures to go along with this little feature for on the Track Xtra, I haven't been able to find pictures of any of them. However, there is a family of amphibians, which may or may not be lizards, depending on who you believe, that are indeed possessed of only the front legs. Amphibians are very peculiar little creatures. There are over 180 species of them found all over the world, including Europe, and they're also known as worm lizards. And the most recent thinking is that they are very primitive members of the lizard clade, from which they diverged something like 107 million years ago. So, even if I'm completely wrong about the skinks, there are things that are generally considered to be lizards of some sort that only have two front legs. But please put me out of my misery. I'm rapidly becoming a silly old sod, because I am now approaching my dotage and my memory is not what it was, so please, if any of you know about lizard species, skinks or otherwise, that do only have two front legs, please, please, please put it in the comments and put me out of my misery. Thanks guys. Reality check over! And so it is not beyond the bounds of possibility that at least once upon a time, until fairly recent historical times, there could have been a large terrestrial amphibian or reptile with only front legs living in Europe, which I think is absolutely fantastic. There was a guy who was a CFZ member up until his death about 15 years ago, just at the end of the last century, so about 1998 I think it was. His name was Roger Hutchings, and he was an avid collector of stuff about the tatzelwurm, and I was very sad when he died, not only because he was a nice bloke and we had one of those really quite close friendships by telephone and letter, but he knew more than anybody else I ever met who's still alive about Tatzelwurm. Another old friend of mine, a guy called Clinton Keeling, who died in 2006, I think, 2006, 2007, he knew quite a lot about it as well. But as the old guard of zoologists, the ones who learnt their stuff in the middle of the 20th century, rather than people like me who learnt my stuff at the end of the 20th century, and people like you who learnt your stuff at the beginning of the 21st century, as the ones, the old guard, go on to the great zoological hunting grounds in the sky. Well,
What was that noise?
what was what noise?
You just made a really sort of a sound.
Oh, I'm so glad that my age and infirmity is something which causes you, young whippersnapper, some little bit of...
I mean, I'm not one to
amusement.
talk, I stutter all the time, so...
Did I stutter? I don't know.
No, you just made a really weird throaty noise for some reason.
That's because I've got a really weird throat. But what I was trying to say before you completely and utterly sidetracked me, I couldn't even remember the word sidetrack, I really am losing it, is that we have lost so much information that was gathered by the previous generation of zoologists and cryptozoologists, and we really need to try and hang on to this before they go. So, young lady, as soon as you see me getting really into my dotage and making funny noises with my throat all day, you're going to have to write down everything that I say that's only interest, rather than stuff I say that's just nonsense I'll make up as I go along. Because one of these days, you might even be sad that you missed it. On the other hand, you probably won't.
I don't know yet.
Here I really want to clear one thing up. I have this horrible vision that people are going to be shouting all over the internet, "Watch out, Dan says that there's been a film of a Tatzelwurm." Well, I'm not saying anything of the sort. The picture is exactly what Carl Marshall says it is. It is a koi carp with slightly unusual markings. But I found it irresistibly reminiscent of the 1920s bulking photograph and decided to tell Charlotte a story about tatzelwurms, which were, after all, a cryptid she'd never heard of before. But now we've got to go over to Richard and Carl.
David Attenborough came into the butterfly farm where I used to work back in about 2010, and I mentioned the Yeti to him, and he basically said to me that he can't see why those footprints would have been faked at that time, at that altitude, and he was quite open to the idea that there was some sort of large unknown animal in the region, and I was just wondering what you thought of that.
Well, the thing about the Shipton photographs was they're in snow, so an animal can leave its prints in the snow, then they can thaw and it distort the outline, and they'll freeze again, making them look bigger than they actually are. So footprints in snow, unless they're very, very recent, are not good evidence. But I've seen tracks in mud in northern India, huge man-like tracks that sunk very deeply into the mud. And I think he's right, there is a large unknown animal in the Himalayan region and other parts of Asia. And I think it's either a great ape or a relic hominin.
Well, the footprints certainly don't match up with the bear. If they were, the feet would be the wrong way around, wouldn't they?
Yeah. If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page and check out our Patreon.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this episode of On the Track. Before we go, I've just got a few parish notices for you. Corinna is away on a holiday with Shosh for the rest of this week, so we're not going to be operating at our full capacity until sometime next week. This episode has come out a few days later than I had originally envisaged, and so as there is a next episode, the next full episode of On the Track scheduled for the middle of next week, there won't be another On the Track Extra for several weeks, bringing us up to just before the UK general election. I think we'll probably have a bit of fun with that. Over the festive season there will be on the track extras, but what they are, why they are, how they are, I have absolutely no idea, so I'm not even going to try and pretend that I have my finger on the button. I know exactly what's going to be happening. On the Track comes out once a month, and in between each episode there are the episodes of On the Track Extra, like this one. But we don't promise exactly how often the On the Track Extra episodes come out. It is just a lovely surprise for us all when they do. Thank you, my darlings, and I will see you very soon. Peace.